Welcome back, everyone. It's Charlie. This will be my full Invincible Season 4, Episode 4 video. There are a whole bunch of Easter eggs, references to the comics, so we'll break it all down. I remember when Robert Kirkman announced they were doing an episode with Invincible set in Hell, if this meant that they could do a Spawn cameo scene. We will see if that ever happens in the future. Usually there's a lot of lawyers that get in the way of really cool stuff like that. There were many cool crossovers in the original Invincible comics, but for some reason, doing it in TV made it so much more difficult. Spider-Man is probably the best example of this last season, where Spider-Man did cross over in the original Invincible comics, but when it came to the TV show, Marvel was like, hard pass, no way we're gonna let him show up on the TV show. The episode is titled Herm, which is Damien Darkblood's catchphrase in the comics because this is the episode where Mark goes to hell to help Satan, the devil, basically win back the throne. They also kind of use the episode to give Mark more of a moral message and a bit of a pep talk that makes him feel better about himself in the idea that sometimes it is okay to kill people because he's been wrestling with that since the beginning of the season, like he's been at his darkest moment up to now. Nothing like a quick trip to hell to give you a pick-me-up. They also clarify the way that this exists relative to the normal dimension, Earth, like regular reality as you would know it on the surface world. Their version of hell in the Invincible universe isn't another dimension, it's just inside the Earth very deep, so theoretically he says that Invincible could just fly home through the Earth, but it would take a long time. There are also many animator jokes in the episode, like they've done in previous seasons, about pulling tricks to try and save money in animation effort, where like they don't show you really crazy stuff and they show you other stuff instead. Kind of making this episode feel like a bottle episode that they used to do in traditional TV shows where they needed to save money because they overspent the budget on other episodes. Like most of their budget this season is probably going to the Viltrumite War episodes. But this is one of the rare Invincible episodes that they've ever done that was not in the original comic book. Robert Kirkman explained that he came up with the idea for it when he was writing the original comic, but at the time, because he was so inexperienced as a comic book writer, he just couldn't figure a way to fit it into his Viltrumite War arc because it felt like too much of a side quest. But because they had so much extra time to fill for the TV show to do these other storylines that weren't in the original comic book, he added it back in. And because he's had many years now, he just figured he would use Mark's morality, his moral arc, as the backbone of the episode. And they also use it for many Bruce Campbell Army of Darkness Evil Dead references, like he goes full Ash Evil Dead Army of Darkness by the end of the episode. The opening scene starts with Mark going to Art to get him to make his yellow suit again. He's not really sure what to do with his life, like he's just feeling really down in the dumps and needs a pep talk from Art, but he doesn't know that he needs the yellow suit yet. It's actually Art that gives him the idea, like, hey, you know what? Maybe you should actually come back to this suit. He also tries to tell Mark that he's not turning out like his father because his father never worried about whether or not his actions were moral, whether or not what he was doing was wrong. Although, to be fair, Omni-Man is now kind of in the middle of his redemption arc and slowly trying to make amends, if that's possible. And obviously, this is foreshadowing this moment here talking about his father trying to redeem himself, also foreshadowing the end of the episode where he literally shows up on Earth to summon Mark to the Viltrumite War. They reveal that Art had already remade the yellow suit long ago and just kept it around thinking that Mark might want it again eventually because he'd gone so dark recently, like the blue suit seemed so hardcore. Robert Kirkman likened the blue suit to being kind of like his symbiote suit in his Spider-Man arc. Like, Spider-Man goes super dark during the symbiote arc before he goes back to the cloth suit, like a cloth version of the black suit.
This is something else.
For those of you that do mourn the loss of the blue suit, if you really like the blue suit does eventually come back in the future, but for now, he's going to be in the yellow suit for a while again. Adam Eve reveals that Invincible Inc. has been hired by Chloe Bennett's Riley to deal with the Cahor character from last season that we saw in the spell grabbed him in the middle of the job, taking him down to hell, with Cahor being just as mad about it, him being gone, because he was male, who he could possess to escape, although they also use this storyline for a lot of jokes. We will get to the Cahor storyline when we get to that part of the episode. We then go down to hell and see Damien Darkblood and his sister Domina, played by Kate Mulgrew from Star Trek, who's another demon, part of his clan Darkblood, fighting a new villain called Volcanica, who is from the comics, played by Indira Varma from Game of Thrones. She's in the middle of leading a civil war against Hell to try and release this ancient race from a previous version of the universe called the Vile to take over the surface world and turn it into a complete ashen wasteland that her kind can rule over. One of the other biggest things they do in this episode, big surprise, is they do a huge lore dump on the way the Invincible reality works in the cycles of different realities. Part of me thinks they went so deep on this, not only because it's cool to do lore dumps like this, like find out about all the really crazy stuff going back in the history of the Invincible universe, but also to set up the Invincible reboot stuff from the comics. We will see how the show tackles that if they ever do it in the future. If you don't know what that is, don't worry about it now. It's just like a far distant future arc that involves a lot of timey-wimey stuff. But they revealed that Damien Darkblood and his clan have been battling against Volcanica in a losing battle multiple times, and Satan, Bruce Campbell's character, has had to resurrect them, basically reconstitute their bodies over and over again. This is now the 4th time they're getting ready for. So part of the idea is they've been losing this battle over and over again with the same methods, and he wants to try something different. So Damien Darkblood says that he'll finally try and summon someone from the surface world again. Previously, Damien had attempted to summon Omni-Man to hell to help them using blood that he had left at the massacre of the Guardians of the Globe at the very beginning of Season 1. When he says that he'd been unsuccessful in a couple of attempts, that's because Omni-Man had left the planet, so he wasn't in the radius that he was casting. Then in this new time, the reason why he's successful and is able to summon Invincible instead of Omni-Man is because they have the same blood, like he is Omni-Man's son, and he widened the radius. When he also says he was afraid of what he might bring down, he's also talking about other crazier things that he wouldn't be able to control, like bigger monsters, which he also later references that are left over from previous iterations of reality. Also love the moment when Damien is disappointed that he summoned Invincible and not Omni-Man because he was hoping for someone more powerful. While he's in the middle of doing that, Satan is in the middle of reconstituting Kate Mulgrew, his sister's body, which he's done many, many times in the past, so it seems like a pretty common thing for them to do this. Just need enough body parts to try and mesh them all back together and heal her. There are a couple other bits of information that we learned too. Damien Darkblood betrayed Satan at some point in the distant past, but they don't explain what he did to betray him and has repaid that debt tenfold, which is why he gets to go back to the surface world at the end. He then gives Mark a big tutorial on how hell works in this reality. It's not a different dimension, it's just underneath the planet, and they call it the Underrealm, not actual hell. While this is happening, then we jump to Chloe Bennett's storyline, Riley, dealing with Cahor, and the big joke here is that he reveals that he could have possessed a woman this whole time, and he could have escaped anytime he wanted to, but he just hated women so much.
Are you saying that you could have taken a female host at any time and you just chose not to?
Then taking over her body, so we're going to have evil Chloe Bennett the next time the Cahor shows up, either later this season or next season, so they're probably just going to have fun with that, letting Chloe Bennett be evil inside her body. He also gets a little pissy, saying that he was hoping for someone with the power of Invincible, like I wanted Invincible's body, not this body. You also probably noticed that Clancy Brown also voices Cahor in addition to Damien Darkblood, so there was just a lot of Clancy Brown voiceover in this episode. Call it the Mr. Krabs episode of Invincible. This time they give her the title treatment first when she says she wishes she had the same powers of Invincible, and we get a little more of a logo breakaway. I still think that Thragg is underneath it, and we go back to hell with Damien Darkblood introducing Invincible to Satan, which they give him a second title treatment for, like multiple titles in the same episode. They've actually done stuff like this in previous episodes where they do multiple title drops, like the bit with Powerplex last season is probably like the peak title joke. Most of the episode, when they're not dealing with Mark's moral arc, they just use for pure comedy, like it's a very silly episode just in general. Tries to kill Satan before they explain to him, no, you're not trying to kill him, you're trying to help him. Which basically sets him off on his moral quandary, his arc during the episode. Wait a minute, I'm supposed to help the devil. Then does his big lore dump where he says that Invincible and all the other regular humans, the people living in the normal dimension, are currently living in the 6th iteration of reality, and there have been 5 cycles of reality before this, which they call ages, like 5 ages, 6 ages now, and all the large monsters that we've seen in the series so far, going back to season 1, like the real big monsters, are remnants of a previous version of reality, the 2nd age. The oldest ones from the 1st age are even more powerful, like he just kind of teases that, like, oh, we don't want to deal with them, they're just like way too hardcore. Think of them like eldritch nightmares. All the demons in Satan are from the 5th age, so they're less powerful than the older beings. They say they don't speak of the 3rd age, so that means that I have a lot of questions about the 3rd age. Robert Kirkman is probably just laughing while he wrote that line, like, ha ha ha, maybe I'll answer that in a future episode of like a future comic book. Then the fourth age was Chaos, a race called the Vile, who are immortal, ruled both Hell and the surface world until they battled them down into submission, and the only reason why humanity evolved in the first place, why Invincible is now alive, is because they did this. So technically the demons and Satan are the good guys and allowed them to flourish on the surface world. Volcanica wants to release the Vile, which will theoretically wipe the entire planet, and at the end of the episode in the post-credit scene, Satan also tasked Damien with finding out what the humans were doing that pissed off Volcanica so much that she wanted to wipe the planet. Maybe they'll pay that off by the end of this season in like a post-credit scene, but that might be something that spills into like future seasons. They want Invincible's help retrieving Satan's molten crown, which will give him his power back, which he'll then use to restore Clan Darkblood and take over Hell again. The bottomless pit is supposedly too deep for any demons to retrieve. I think it's meant to be a reference to Tartarus.
How exactly do we get to the bottom of a bottomless pit?
Not actually bottomless.
If you're not up on your Greek mythology or you don't watch Percy Jackson, Tartarus is like the lowest level of the Greek underworld. It's like a bottomless pit, basically. When Damien wonders if he could have actually convinced Omni-Man to help them if he'd been the one to come down, I think he could have, because the Viltrumites needed humans to repopulate their race, so they would have had to save humanity by defeating the Vile and Volcanica, so he would have been forced to help them. Then they play the long fall for jokes, like this is one of the longest falls in the history of animation almost. Maybe not the longest, but you can let me know in the comments if you think there have been longer ones on other shows. The bits about the nanotech helmet, all this stuff are animators' tricks to save money so they don't have to animate a whole lot of crazy stuff. There's another one of these scenes right after this too that you probably detected. They made jokes about this in previous seasons, joking about how the animators try to pull tricks to make their job easier and to save money on animation. Couple other important lore dumps. We find out that there is no heaven in the Invincible universe, no higher being keeping track of good or bad deeds, which is also meant to be part of Mark's morality arc in this episode. Damien gives him probably the highest compliment that he could give anybody by saying that there's a detective inside him. When they find the crown guarded by Cerberus, banished there recently, they have another animation joke by not showing you Invincible's epic battle with Cerberus, but Damien instead to avoid having to animate that giant battle, saving a ton of money. Like I said, probably allocating their budget to animating the Viltrumite war stuff. When Satan puts the crown back on, his power is restored and hulks out big time and goes full Ash, Army of Darkness, Evil Dead. Like he starts talking, speaking in a different, more comedic kind of Ash way too. Damien Darkblood gives Mark another speech about what it really means to be a hero, helping him work through his metaphorical demons, getting an inspirational speech from Hell. One of his other messages is also that sometimes you do have to fight, like sometimes you do have to kill, which is a big message that pays off at the end of the episode when he finally realizes, I have to kill Volcanica because otherwise it's going to mean the end of all reality. But when he says there's always going to be another non-violent path, but they haven't figured it out yet, I think the idea is that Mark will eventually figure that out in the distant future of the story of the seasons. We get a real quick moment with Kate Mulgrew's Domina character, who is partially reassembled, but not quite ready for battle. Like, she's back alive. Welcome back, Kate Mulgrew. Captain's back on duty. We get a little more of Satan going full Ash Evil Dead as they go into actual battle, and they use Slayer's Raining Blood song, and it turns into a huge metal mosh pit kind of battle. We get a real quick moment where Domina's axe seems like it works kind of like Thor's hammer and returns back to her, like it flies back through the magma. I think that's been returning to her hand, basically. And eventually, when she gets them dead to rights and is about to win, Invincible realizes that killing her really is necessary and then just splatters her head over and over again multiple times until she decides to retreat. If it wasn't clear, that's what's happening, like she's retreating into the magma, like melting into the magma, so she's still alive and will return someday. With Invincible saying that he is willing to return to Hell to help them if she ever does actually return. Then also helping them with a solid punch to the Vile, although to be fair, it doesn't look like he expended that much effort to actually splatter her head or to punch the Vile back into the magma. Mostly, I think they use this moment to destroy his blue costume, giving him the excuse to go back to the new-as-old yellow suit. There's a real quick joke about the demons not believing about aliens from another world when he references the Viltrumites like, aliens? What? That's crazy.
Aliens from another world. Who would believe such a thing is possible?
And when Satan allows Damian to go back to the surface world, he says, maybe there'll be a seventh age. We need to monitor what's going to be happening. I think that's meant to be a reference, like the next version of reality is a reference to the reboot universe in the Invincible comics. We will see if they get into that ever in the show. Back on Earth, we find out that Adam Eve tells William about the baby. There is a new voice actor for William that you probably detected, and she says that she does want to have children someday, which will be a larger issue in the future, in addition to this current baby storyline, but that's kind of going on in the background now. Invincible yoinks his yellow suit, flies home way less depressed than before, nothing like a quick trip to hell to pick up your spirits. Debbie tells Oliver and Mark about moving in together with Paul and getting a new house, which they seem cool with mostly, and then he and Adam Eve are talking through it on the roof again. He's kind of explaining his trip to hell, and she's about to tell him about her pregnancy and the baby until, dun dun dun, Omni-Man shows up with Alan the alien to summon him to the Viltrumite War. This is also accurate to the comics. Mark doesn't actually learn about the pregnancy, about the baby, until he returns from this first part of the Viltrumite War arc, and a lot of time goes by. We will get into this in the next couple of episodes too, like a lot of really crazy stuff goes down. During the post-credit scene, though, Damian Darkblood, back on his trademark trench coat and hat on top of the high-rise, when Satan asks him to investigate why Volcanica wanted to wage war on the surface, what's changed recently, what are the humans doing? Like I said, this is probably going to be something that they don't deal with till like a post-credit scene in the finale and then in future seasons. But also the reason why Damian says he was afraid of something like this happening is because he doesn't want Satan in hell to come back to the surface world and potentially try to start another war to conquer the surface world. But overall, it was a pretty quick episode. Like, there wasn't a lot going on in this episode, but they did have a couple cool lore drops, especially the idea about the cycles of reality and them being in the 6th version of reality right now. Everybody post all your reactions in the comments below, and let me know if you spotted any Easter eggs or references in the episode that I didn't talk about during the video. My full episode 5 video will post next week after they release it. The other reminder is the Daredevil Born Again Season 2 episodes have just started. I just posted my episode 1 video, so I'll link it at the end of this. And we might be getting that first trailer for the Harry Potter reboot series that HBO is doing. If they do drop it, I will do a video for it. But everyone click here for my Daredevil Born Again Season 2 Episode 1 video, and everyone click here for all my Invincible episodes. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.